hour. Give her a hand as she comes. Just kind of shares what God did.
Yes, so growing up, I got to go on a couple missions trips, and I've always had a passion for it. I've always loved it, but I never knew, okay, God, like, is this what you're calling me to? Is this it? And so I kind of put a lot of expectation on this trip for God to reveal things to me, just for him to open doors, just for me to feel alive on this trip. And the first couple of days, I was feeling absolutely nothing. I was feeling like I didn't have anything to give them, like I didn't love them as much as God loved them. And I continued to pray. I said, God, give me a heart for these people. I was waking up early the first 3 days and praying and reading my Bible, and still nothing was happening. I felt like I was kind of like forcing myself to like play with the children and forcing myself just to do these things, and it didn't make any sense. And so, but I continued to pray. And on the 4th day, we were playing with these children. And this little girl, her name was Chelsea, and she was about 4, but I saw her coming to me, and she was just running at me, and she leaped into my arms and started hugging me. I hardly even knew her, but she was holding me so tight, and in that moment, I felt the Lord. He said, this is it, and I literally felt him give me his love for her. I felt just this love that I've never felt before in my life, and in that moment, God just said, this is it. This is what you're called to do. And that's kind of what I want to share with you guys, is that we are called to love everyone. We're called to love the poor. We're called to love those in other nations. And maybe you don't feel it, but I encourage you to keep praying, keep asking God, and he will give you that heart. And so after that day, he began to open up more opportunities for me to interact with children. And we were on the street doing door-to-door ministry, and these kids just began to follow us around. And I was like, yes, like finally. And so I just gathered around. We were in this street. I promise there's no cars, but it was just this gravel, dirty road. And I was like, all right, guys. And we just sat down in the road, and I gave them the literature. And in this booklet, it shared how Jesus died for them. It shared how there was a God who loved them. And I shared this with them, and they were just all captivated. And I said, do you guys know Jesus? And they said, yeah, we've heard of him. And I said, well, do you want to accept him into your heart? Do you want a relationship with him? And they said, yes. And I was so shocked. Wait for the clap. Okay. I was so shocked. I was like, this is so easy. All it took was me telling them. And guys, all it takes is us to go to these places, to be willing to sacrifice, to give up. These kids, they're hungry for Jesus. God is already placing it in their hearts, but someone has to tell them. Yeah. All it took was me going, and they said yes, and so I got to lead those 6 children to Christ that night. Yeah. And yeah, that's right. Awesome. And so just the last thing is I want to encourage you guys to pray for a heart for others, because each one of us, we know the truth, but how often do we share it? We have this light on the inside of us, but how are we bringing it into the darkness? How are we going out? So I want to encourage you guys, pray, sacrifice. Just as I never felt more full in that moment when I was holding that girl, you'll never feel more full than when you're walking in God's calling for you. And as I held that girl, I knew this is what I'm called to do. I'm called to love. And each one of us are called to love. So go out of your way, sacrifice, give up, and you'll be amazed at what God will do.
Awesome. Hey, can we just give the Lord praise for that? I'm going to ask David